Good afternoon. It is September 13th, 2024. This is the book of Revelation is so simple. Today we're going to be discussing the millennial reign in part. This will be part one because there's a lot to the millennial reign of Christ. More so, we're starting out with the preparations for the millennial reign. We covered up to chapter 8 in the book of Revelation. What a lot of things that occur in the visions John has shown up to chapter 8. Now there's other stuff in other chapters, of course, that do go before the millennial reign. And to kind of show this in Revelation chapter 20, if you want to go there. Revelation chapter 20 reads basically from before Christ, before the resurrection. I mean, this is when Christ, right when he's coming to get us, events that begin to happen all the way through till after the judgment, after the 1,000-year reign, and you know, these horrible people are thrown into the lake of fire after the judgment. So let's cover a little bit of Revelation chapter 20. I'm going to stop. I'm not going to go through all of Revelation 20 because, like I said, it's the whole thing. If you're putting all this on a timeline, it's right at Revelation 20 starts at the beginning and ends at the end, basically. And this is a vision. These everything, as I said before. Where John's at right now, he has been taken up to heaven. He has seen all these visions. He saw Christ open the scroll. He saw visions regarding that. He saw visions regarding our resurrection, and visions regarding what happens before he resurrects us. And visions that's happened after he resurrects us, before he destroys the whore of Babylon, a lot of the equations of in visions, the plagues, the first 4 plagues, he sees those destroying the whore of Babylon. And but like I said, all these visions you have to assemble together. I've said this over and over. You cannot read the book of Revelation from beginning to end, and it doesn't make sense. You can read it from beginning to end over and over to soak in the scriptures, which will help you, blend it all together, when you start doing your timeline of events. And you can be put on a timeline. I had a preacher recently. He was up there doing his thing and said, you can't put all this on the timeline. Yes, you can. And it's very simple. So Revelation 20 was one of the foundations that I used to put everything on a timeline, because it covers from beginning to end. So in verse 1 it says, "Next I saw an angel coming down from heaven, who had the keys to the abyss and a great chain in his hand. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, the adversary, and chained him up for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss, locked it, and sealed it over him, so that he, the devil, could not deceive the nations any more until the 1,000 years were over. After the 1,000 years, he has to be set free for a little while." So this goes back to Revelation chapter 7. The angel that come up from the east with a seal from the living God, he just got done locking Satan up, locking him up in the abyss. And that's where Satan sits the entire 1,000-year reign of Christ. And this is one of the first things that happen. One of the very first things that happens when all of heaven, Christ, everyone in heaven, and God the Father, all of heaven, everything that's in heaven comes to earth. No one's going to be guessing or none of this left behind garbage that you see in these movies. None of that's going to happen. Everyone's going to look up. They know something is going on. And then when those resurrected bodies come up out of the grave, everyone who has ever died come up out of the grave, it's going to freak a lot of people out. But then the angels, God sends his angels down, takes his people up to meet the Lord in the air. But before he has his angels come down to get the people, before that trumpet sounds, for them to be resurrected with him up in the clouds, he comes down from Revelation 20 with the chain in his hand and the key to the abyss. He won everything at the cross. He has been in control since he died and raised from the cross. And this is say about 2,000 years ago, but it's actually about like 1,700 something years ago, 1,800 years ago, on our calendar, that Christ was raised, on the third day, and then it was later that he invited John up, the one, John brags, I'm the apostle that Christ loved the most, the apostle that Christ loved the most. He invited John up to witness. I mean, when you want, you got a friend for a good long time, and you do something great, you invite your friends, Well, he invited this one friend, and it was the one friend that didn't run. When Christ was going through all his trials and tribulation, John was there. He didn't run and hide from nobody. Peter ran, and the other one split. But John did not. John was right there watching everything going on, right there in the street as he's being dragged, and Christ is being, having to drag that cross through the streets to go up to Calvary. John was always there. He's like the friend till the end. So when on the third day Christ was resurrected, and then later down the road, he appears to all of the disciples, and in certain instances down the road and in the upper room, they all know that he's alive, etc. And so, but Jesus has that special place in his heart for his friend who stuck with him, who didn't run. When you're about to, go through the worst part of your life, and your friends split, but there's one friend. Some of you know what I'm talking about. That's your friend. So anyway, John got to be invited up to witness all this and to write all this down. And he invites him up. And even in chapter 20, what's going on here is John, there's Jesus, there's God the Father, there's all the angels. They're all watching what's going on with John and Jesus, and Jesus giving John these visions about what was written in the scroll of Revelation. So, because, it's all one, it's still the same story at that point. So, I'll get to babbling on. I just kind of want to set the tone where we're at. So, but when you assemble it, now I'll talk about when we're assembling on a timeline. God told Israel to keep the feasts for a reason, and that's because on the Feast of Trumpets, the first feast, that's the actual first feast, is the Feast of Trumpets. It happens in the fall. It falls sometimes at September, October on our calendar year. You can look this stuff on the internet or wherever. Walmart actually has a great book. I wish I could find it. But it's Bible charts and stuff by, I can't remember who it was. I picked one up a long time ago. I need to pick up more recent ones because I like knowing what the Jewish calendar date is today. I don't lost track. I think it's 57. Was it 84? I can't remember what it is, but that's the actual calendar. We're 5,000 something years since Adam. Okay, and if you take that for 4,000 years of the Old Testament, we're only about 1704 or something. 1784. I can't remember what it was. That should be the actual date that we're now. But because of a Roman emperor who jumped from he wanted to be the millennial emperor, and it was like 780 or 760 AD, somewhere around there. Well, he decreed, wait, we're skipping this time. I'm being the millennial emperor. Well, he's the emperor. He can do it. Roman emperor. He can do what he wants. He changed the calendar, and that's why nobody can find that gap in time. And they figured it out recently because he decreed. They found the decree where they were going to skip 200 and something years. So, which also affected, what I've been teaching, because I know for a fact that 2,000 years after the destruction of Jerusalem, which occurred on our calendar between 66 and 70 AD, 2,000 years later, Christ will return. We are supposed to know the day and the hour. I proved that in other sermons and other teachings. Slap myself in the face. So we're looking at 2066 to 2070. Well, that's not correct now either, because I just found out about the Roman emperor changing the calendar. And when you change the calendar, it's almost directly on with that Jewish lunar calendar in the years. I mean, it's like 10 to 20 years off, so there's still, Satan just messed us all up. But so add 220 years to, well, let's see, what is this? 2024, 34, 34, I don't know, we had like 50 years to go for Christ to come, but then you add that 220 or 240 years. So you're looking at 280 years before he comes. So he's not coming tomorrow. Get that out of your head. Armageddon's not coming tomorrow. That happens after the millennial reign. Christ is not coming tomorrow. You may die and go see him, in one of the cases with me, pretty much die and get to see some heaven. Didn't get to come back, but all right. So now we're on the timeline. The feast. The first feast was the Feast of Trumpets. On that feast was the resurrection, where the third resurrection, where we are taken up to meet the Lord in the air. Then within an hour, the destruction of the whore of Babylon, which you're going to see when we read some out of Isaiah 60 through 66 and Isaiah 33 and 34. It bounces around, talks about that a little bit. But then we also went forward, and from Revelation 8, after the whore is destroyed by the first four plagues, the trumpets and bowl combinations, which are the plagues, they combine them together. Trumpet 1, bowl 1 is the plague 1. Trumpet 2, bowl 2 is plague number 2. That's why it has numbers. The first four were destruction of the whore of Babylon, which took place on the Feast of Trumpets. The next day, a few days later, or somewhere a week later, we have the Day of Atonement. And that is when Christ will be seen going into Jerusalem. But there is a lot that happens in between right there. And it is all preparations for Christ's millennial reign. And one of the first things he did was he took out the guy on the top. That's what you do. We fight wars, and they fight wars too. They find the guy at the top and take him out. Well, you fight your way to the top that way, but Christ takes out the top, and then he works down. But he took out Satan right off the bat, locked him up. So that's all we're going to cover is Revelation chapter 21 through 3. Because, 4 talks about, us being resurrected and stuff. Which we'll get to that later. We'll go back and talk about that when we get to Revelation chapter 20. But on the Day of Atonement, Revelation 14, Christ is seen with his 144,000. And he's going to go in to begin his millennial reign. But before that, if you want to get into the meat and potatoes, and we're not going to go, that's a lot of scripture. You read the whole book of Isaiah. Now, I told you to read Jeremiah chapters 50 and 51 for the destruction of the whore of Babylon. Well, for understanding what's going to happen in that area of time when Christ comes to set up his millennial reign, you need to read basically all of Isaiah. But again, like I said, it splits up between he like Isaiah will be talking about, how God's going to destroy Jerusalem, which was in their future, but in our past, it happened in our past already. But then he'll go on and say about when Christ returns, or he'll talk about Jerusalem being restored, and then he'll go back and say something about Jerusalem being destroyed. It's destroyed here, and then it's going to be restored here. So, get a drink. And, but Isaiah chapter 33. And, this is jump back here just to show one verse that you'll be reading, like Isaiah 33 verse 20. It says, I'm going to read from there to the end to chapter 34. Look at Zion, the city of our festivals. Your eyes will see Jerusalem, a secure abode, a tent that will not be removed. Okay. Whose pegs will never be pulled out, and whose guy ropes will not be cut. But there in his splendor Adonai will be with us, in a place of rivers and broad streams. But no boat with oars will go there, no majestic ship will pass by. For Adonai is our judge. Adonai, it's God the Father, is our lawgiver. Adonai is our king. He will save us. For your ropes are hanging loose, not holding the mast, not spreading the sail. Then the plunder shared out is so huge that even the lame get part of the spoil. No inhabitant of Jerusalem, this is no inhabitant on verse 24. This is for the people that's going to be in the millennial reign and afterwards, because I believe this is talking about even afterwards. No inhabitant will say, I am ill. The people living there will be forgiven their sin. Let me explain something about sin and death. Before Adam's sin in the garden, there was no such thing as death. Nobody had heard of it. Nobody had imagined it. Nobody could even comprehend it. Such a word, such an idea. God created Adam. And then, in the beginning, God created everything. In the 6 days, rested on the seventh. And he created Adam and all the creatures, etc. Well, then he told Adam to name all the creatures. Now, today, that's over like 8 million, if you Google it. Birds, animal, insects, the whole 9 yards. He didn't name those in a day or a week or a year or 10 years or a decade or a month. He might have named one a day. God presents him with this. Look at this. Look at this. Oh, this is what I made. What are you going to call that, Adam? You got to name it. And he would probably study that thing for a while. You take ideas and his his new logical thinking. He's a new creation, and he's putting together ideas of how to name these things. And he names it, well, in whatever language he was speaking. Grasshopper. It's a grasshopper over there. And then maybe a year later he names another one. That's a cow. I'm gonna call it a cow, a calf. So we don't know. There's no time set of how long Adam and God were together before God even made Eve. It was after all that Adam was, found out, well, he was kind of lonely then, All these other animals had their little mates, but he didn't. So then God's like, well, here's a mate, creates woman, and then he says, go, multiply on the earth, fill the whole earth with your offspring. Go rule, and it's all yours. It's all yours to rule. And so he starts doing that, and nations and children are born, and nations are born, and they cover the earth. Because we know this, because one of Adam's sons, after sin entered the garden, went to another nation to get a wife. Now, how could that happen so quickly? Unless it already was there. We don't know the timeline of before sin in the garden, but our Bible gives us the timeline from the time sin entered the garden. 4,000 years in the Old Testament and 2,000 years in the New Testament before Christ begins his millennial reign, which is the last 1,000 years, the 7,000th year, and 7 is the number of completion. And so to keep that in mind, this is you see stuff all over the internet about space alien races, and they found something in the earth, deep in the earth, and ancient cities, and all this stuff. Yeah, it's old cities. It's where someone built something a long time ago, hundreds of thousands, million years ago. We don't know how long ago. And these technologies, it's it's nothing new to God, nothing new to Satan, because I'm sure he utilized a lot of technologies when he had dominion over the earth for the 4,000 years, and did all his crazy stuff that they talk about in Genesis chapter 6. But they don't have, they're not alien. In fact, the Bible says God only made celestial and terrestrial beings, those on the earth and those in heaven. It was Satan who made offspring from the human women and basically put his seed, mixed it with a man, and made things, creatures, just aliens or something, He's got technology, the little flying disc ships, anti-gravity. God was the first one to make anti-gravity. I look at the I think it was the pine beetle, these big beetles, and one them guys that study insects, he could not understand how these things flew, because the weight of that insect was too heavy for those tiny little wings. But when the lids of the wings, the back of the beetle's back lifted up, it was a natural type of anti-gravity. And a man proved this, and he studied it, and he built his own little anti-gravity. I don't know if it was something to do with the shape, material, I don't know. They don't tell you on the video. But that would lift the body, take the weight of the body of the beetle up to where the beetle was not that heavy, and then the little wings could fly and maneuver. One sec. Got people playing on the soggy wet road out there. This is after our wonderful rain we've had. So, in a nutshell, let's get back. I get on like little things that go way off. So let's read Isaiah chapter 24. Come close, you nations, and listen. Pay close attention, you peoples. Actually, we'll skip that part. This is what, run down to verse 5. This is a part of what's going to happen when Jesus comes. And it's before he steps into Jerusalem with his 144,000 chosen. It is after he has resurrected all of us to heaven. And I'm sure he's going to give us orders what to do and start preparing this and that. And then he comes down by himself. Chapter 5. For my sword has drunk its fill in heaven. Now it descends on Edom to judge them. The people I have doomed to destruction. There is a sword that belongs to Adonai. It is filled with blood, gorged with fat, filled with the blood of lambs and goats, gorged with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For Adonai has a sacrifice in Bozrah, a great slaughter in the land of Edom. The wild oxen will fall with them, the young bulls with the strong, mature ones. Their land will be drunk with blood, and their dust made greasy with fat. And here's a key verse, 8. For Adonai has a day of vengeance, a year of requital for fighting with Zion. Adonai sends his right arm, that's Jesus. Its streams will be changed to tar, its dust to sulfur, its land burning tar. That will not be quenched night or day, its smoke will rise forever. In all generations it will lie waste, no one will pass through it ever again. Horned owl and hawk will possess it, screeched owl and raven will live there. He will screech over it, the measuring line of confusion. Stretch over it, not screech over it, sorry. He'll stretch over it, the measuring line of confusion, and the plumb line of the empty word. Verse 12. Of its nobles none will be called king, and all its princes will be nothing. Thorns will overgrow its palaces, nettles and thistles its fortresses. It will become a lair for jackals, an enclosure for ostriches. Verse 14. Wildcats and hyenas will meet there, and billy goats call to each other. Lilith, whatever that is, it says the night monster, will lurk there and find herself a place to rest. There the hoot owl will nest, lay her eggs, hatch, and gather her young in its shade. There the vultures will assemble, every one with its mate. Consult the book of Adonai and read it. Not one of these will be missing. None will be lacking a mate. For by his own mouth he gave the order, and by his spirit he brought them together. It is he who cast the lot for them. His hand measured out their shares. They will possess it forever and live there through all generations. So this place in Edom will become, it's desert. Well, it was desert, but there's other verses in here that says the deserts are going to be turned to marshlands. And in a nutshell, all these creatures are going to live there. It goes on in chapter 25. This is restoration that's going to happen when Christ returns for his millennial reign. The desert and the dry land will be glad. The Arabia will rejoice and blossom like the lily. It will burst into flowers. Will rejoice with joy and singing. Will be given the glory of the Lebanon, the splendor of Carmel and the Sharon. They will see the glory of Adonai, the splendor of our God. Strengthen your drooping arms and steady your tottering knees. Say to the faint-hearted, be strong and unafraid. Here is your God. He will come with vengeance. With God's retribution, he will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind will be opened, and the ears of the deaf will be unstopped, and the lame man will leap like a deer, and the mute person's tongue will sing. For in the desert springs will burst forth, streams of water in the Arabia. I believe it's Arabia. It says another Jewish word here. I think it was Arabia. Yeah, Arabia. And the sandy mirage will become a pool. These are deserts, all the deserts turning to marshlands and pools of water and green things. The thirsty ground springs of water. The haunts where jackals lie down will become a marsh filled with reeds and papyrus trees. And this is also another part on verse 8. It's going to happen during the millennial reign, or right before it'll start happening. One of the projects. It says a highway will be there, a way called the way of holiness. The unclean will not pass over it, but it will be for those whom he guides. This is a road for God's new people, the ones that choose to find him. Because we find out from the holy city that it's going to be a beacon for the nations. And I'll talk about that later on when we get to that. Because like I said, the holy city, New Jerusalem, will be coming at the beginning too. That is where we will rule and reign with Christ for 1,000 years. That is where where God would be seated for the millennial reign, God the Father, in that tent of witness, but sealed up. Nobody would be able to enter from the smoke and all after he hands the angels their he gives them the 7 plague angels, they're each a trumpet, and then they come down from that tent of witness to the altar at the bottom, and I believe that's Christ Jesus with the bowls, hands them each a bowl. Finish reading this and I'll get back to that. I'm going to tell you something about that. Fools will not stray along it. No fools, no crazy people, no child molesters, nothing bad's going to be there. No lion or other beast of prey will be there traveling on it. They will not be found there, but the redeemed will go there. Those ransomed by Adonai will return and come with singing to Zion. On their heads will be everlasting joy. They will acquire gladness and joy, while sorrow and sighing will flee. This is one of the projects that right there, that road is one of the projects going to be occurring right at the beginning of millennial reign, when he opens up to all the people, come to me. Okay. But what he does before that is he goes in, he wipes out the enemies of Jerusalem. And I'm going to jump back to that in a second. Let me go to what I was going to tell you about. And I want, if you're a pastor, answer this question. In Revelation chapter 15, the 7 plague angels receive their bowls at the bottom, down at that altar, from that angel at the altar. Now, later, John, and in 16, they pour their bowls out, these 7 plague angels. You see them pouring. Now, this is according to your linear study. They pour those bowls out. So then later on, if you're going linear through the book of Revelation, here's Christ, or not Christ, well, the angel, which I believe is Christ. Later on, it says that angel with his 7 bowls walks up to him. Now, nowhere did it say those plague angels gave the bowls back. They poured them out. And then later, even after that, down the road in later chapters in the book of Revelation, there's that same angel with the 7 vials, the 7 bowls of plague, full of the 7 last plagues. The bowls are still full, but they were poured out back here, in the back. So ask yourself, how can that be true in a linear interpretation of the book of Revelation from beginning to end? It's impossible. You can't answer that question. You can make up crap. But what it is these are all, that the angel never left from that spot. And that angel comes up, that angel that he's talking about is Christ. Christ is right there with him, watching these visions of Christ giving these 7 plague angels their bowls. So he's saying, the angel, but at that time, Christ has those bowls with him. He still has those bowls with him. He has not handed them out yet. Those are his bowls. And so, you got to assemble these visions. Now remember, okay, let's go back. Remember Christ's destruction. Let's go to 63 of Isaiah. I'm going to cut this short after this because we got lots of parts of the millennial reign. 63. This is Christ. This is Christ after he's gone around. The whore of Babylon's destroyed, with the rest of the, boom. But around Jerusalem, Christ has just went around and just took out these people, all these evil people that he don't, maybe they're coming. And here's another, in 62 verse 10. Go 62:10. Go on through the gates, clear the way for the people, build up a highway, build it up. That's that same highway, the way of holiness. Clear away the stones, raise a banner for all the people. That's one of the orders Christ is giving during the millennial reign. See, Isaiah, he jumps, back and forth about things that are going to happen. But you can assemble this stuff. Chapter 63, verse 1. This is Christ about to enter into Jerusalem. And his blood... Oh, I was supposed to read that. What squirted all over. I missed. Where did that verse go? Hold on. Their lifeblood squirted all over. Here it is. Just show the sword belongs to gorgeous fat blood lambs. Generations. I'm sorry. Going through here. I'm trying to find the one verse where it says. Maybe it was in 60. I'm so prepared for this. Not. I want to cover the verse, and it's in here, where he talks about going through Edom and slaughtering the people, and their blood just covers them. Well, we'll just skip that for now, because it's somewhere. You'll read it when you read it, Isaiah. But so now his clothes are blood soaked. So chapter 63, verse 1. Who is this coming from Edom, from Bachrah, with clothing stained crimson? So magnificently dressed, so stately in his great strength. Not going to be the little baby Jesus coming. He's going to be the big, carpenter, kick some people around, take them down. Jesus. It is I who speak victorious, I well able to say. That's save. That's what Jesus tells them. He's coming just blood soaked, and they're like, who is this so magnificently dressed, so stately and great in his strength? They can see his strength, his power, and he's coming. And it is I who speak victoriously, I well able to save. Verse 2. They ask, why is your apparel red? Your clothes like someone treading a winepress. Verse 3. I have trodden the winepress alone, Jesus tells them. From the peoples, not one was with me. So I trod them in my anger, trampled them in my fury, so their lifeblood spurted out on my clothing. And I have stained all my garments. For the day of vengeance that was in my heart, and my year of redemption have come. Right there in verse 4, he's telling them, who he is. But in verse 4, it's same as Isaiah. We just read Isaiah 34:8. It's here. It's also in 61 verse 2, and also in 63 verse 4. 3 times in the book of Isaiah, the word is telling us that when Christ returns, it'll be one day of vengeance on his enemies. And boy, is it a day, the day of the Lord. He takes up his people, and he wipes out the whore of Babylon, and he wipes out everybody around Israel. It's his enemy. And he decides to go walking in Jerusalem after battle. And that's what they see. The toughest guy you ever know. Walking in, blood all over him. But he tells them, for my day of vengeance that was in my heart, in my year of redemption have come. Year of redemption, year of restoration for Jerusalem. It's come. There's not 7-year tribulation coming, people. It's nowhere. You cannot find 7-year tribulation anywhere throughout the Bible. There's no verse that says 7-year tribulation. There's only a verse that says great tribulation in Revelation chapter 7, and then but that's from the time sin started to the time Christ returns here to take up his people. That is the Great Tribulation. We are still in the Great Tribulation. We're going to be here. The great time of trouble for us because we screwed up. Man screwed up. Adam screwed up. If it wouldn't have been Adam, it might have been somebody else, but it was eventually going to happen sometime, I guess, is what, some say. But there's no evidence of a 7-year tribulation other than in Daniel that the Antichrist back before he destroyed Jerusalem made a pact with the people of Jerusalem saying, okay, we'll have peace for 7 years. I'll guarantee you peace for 7 years. And he breaks it 3.5 years into it. Well, that's just out of a history book. Okay? It happened. It's done. It's not going to reoccur. It's not, when you defeated your enemy, you don't allow them to come back. Satan got kicked out of heaven down here to us for us to deal with if we had to deal with him. God's given us everything we needed. God's given you the power and authority and the knowledge to defeat Satan here today on earth. You just got to open his word, declare it, read it, and use it. And everybody's a victim today. Nobody wants to pick up the word, the sword of truth, and fight. They'd rather make money. Jesus. Oh, Lord. Verse 5 of chapter 63 of Isaiah. Jesus says, I looked, but there was no one to help, and I was appalled that no one upheld me. Therefore my own arm brought me salvation, and my own fury upheld me. In my anger I trod down the peoples, made them drunk with my fury. Then I poured out their lifeblood on the earth. And then he goes on about recalling the grace of Adonai. And he's like, okay, that's enough. But that's where we're at in that point and of time on the timeline. And it's before he walks into Jerusalem with his 144,000. He may have his 144,000 behind him at that time. I'm not sure. There's no specific verse. He may be walking in to Jerusalem on those couple of days after, but he may have just stopped and then took a little break for a couple of days, and then on the Day of Atonement decide to walk in Jerusalem with his 144,000. That's yes or no, I don't know, because it's not a specific verse that I can find. But he goes in Jerusalem, Day of Atonement, to prepare for his millennial reign. Blood-stained clothes. He just got slaughter and Edom and all the surrounding nations. There's other verses and other books of the Bible that talks about Christ going through all the nations and just taking them out that surround it. I guess when that many people were brought back up at the resurrection, and they're evil people that are left here, that all those from the past of that time and all we're taking Jerusalem. And then Jesus ends up going down by himself and just cleaning them out. I'm like, no, you're not. It's not going to happen. So, that's the end of part 1 for the millennial reign. I encourage you to read Isaiah slowly. Keep that stuff in mind. And 60 through 66 is strongly about the millennial reign. I mean, Isaiah 34, and you'll find other stuff where he talks about some millennial reign. So, and it's wonderful things that are going to take place during the millennial reign. He's given these people a second chance, second chance to come to him, and just to come to him, not burn for eternity, because they're resurrected. Like I said, those 3 verses, they're resurrected back. Everyone's resurrected, and some to everlasting life, some to everlasting shame and abhorrence. I think that's Daniel 12:2. In John chapter 5, this is Jesus, and let me read John chapter 5. Swing over John chapter 5, and Another Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I don't know why I don't have John. Oh, I'm in Luke. No wonder. Yeah, I'm flipping to the wrong little cue card here. John chapter 5, verse 28. Jesus is telling them, and he's talking about, they were talking about the resurrection, and these people that don't believe in the resurrection were talking with Jesus. Verse 27. Also he, this is the Father, has given him, that's Jesus, in verse 27. Also he, the Father, this is the Father God, has given him, that's Jesus, authority to execute judgment, because he is the Son of Man. Verse 28. Don't be surprised at this, because at the time is coming when all who are in the grave will hear his voice and come out, those who have done good to a resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to a resurrection of judgment. As judgment is the same judgment in Revelation chapter 7 with the word hurt or harm, when these four angels are told, do not harm, do not hurt the land, which is Jerusalem, the sea, the nations, or any single tree, which is any single person, until he has sealed his servants, the 144,000. He had put the protective seal on them. That's the resurrection. That's the judgment. They're not to be judged. But that's what, it's the same judgment we're talking about. The exact same judgment. That judgment, all who have done good to a resurrection of life, and all those who have done evil to a resurrection of judgment. Now hold on to that life verse. Go back to Revelation chapter 20. Hold your hand there at John. And at Revelation 20, which I'm flying past again. Revelation 20. Stained up pages. Scribbled this everywhere. And verse 4, Revelation 20, verse 4. Then I saw thrones, and those seated on them received authority to judge. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for testifying about Yeshua and proclaiming the word of God. Also those who had not worshipped the beast or its image, and had not received the mark on their foreheads or on their hands. They came to life and ruled with the Messiah for 1,000 years. It says the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years are over. It says this is the first resurrection. Verse 6, this is what I want to point out. Blessed and holy is anyone who has part in the first resurrection. That word actually means prior resurrection. The word first does not belong there. It's a prior to the millennial reign. It's the one at the time of his coming, the third resurrection. Because Jesus was the first. We went through that already in another teaching. This is the prior resurrection. Blessed and holy is anyone who has part in the prior resurrection. Over him the second death has no power. So these are the people at third resurrection. The reason the second death has no power is that the ones that are resurrected are taken up at the third resurrection on the day of the Lord. That's it. They've made it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. They made it. Because God's going to put his Shekinah glory on them, and they've received, they're protected too. There's no way you're going to falter or you're not going to be one of these people that turn against God at the Battle of Armageddon, 1,000 years later. So remember that. And then again, the other verse in Acts 24, again, going back to the people who resurrected, 24:15. I guess this is Paul. He says, and I continue to have hope in God, which they too accept, that there will be a resurrection, at one of the resurrections, of both the righteous and the unrighteous. There will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous. The people in hell are coming. They're coming up. Okay? You had someone you lost that went to hell and it tearing you up. Have hope. The church won't tell you that. Have hope in the blessed God, the true and holy one. Have hope in him. And who knows, you may be the one guiding that person during the millennial reign, guiding them back to God. That person you lost. Or God may have someone assigned to them, that, can do the job better. I don't know. No offense or anything, but anyway, let's close this out. And again, if you want to learn all this on your own, in a nutshell, basically just download my free ebooks. I got 2 of them, and read the Word of God. And the 2 books are on smashwords.com, SMASHWORDS, smash like smash words, Hulk smash, smashwords.com. The platform's going down soon. It may not even be up when you try to upload it, but if you email me at revelationsofgraceandmercy@gmail.com, I can try and shoot you a copy somehow. Or just wait, I'll find another platform to put it on. But Revelations of Grace and Mercy, the truest interpretation of the book of Revelation by Robert Peyton, P-A-T-O-N, and or download the other book, the latest one, which is shorter, and it is the book of Revelation is so simple. And that's also on Smashwords. So, have a great day, and I will catch y'all the next break I get. Yeah.